Well, good morning and welcome to the Great Transition Senior Living Seminar Series. Today we're going to be tackling the topic planes, trains, and automobiles. Learning about travel in the retirement years. This is when we should really be enjoying a lot of trips. I'm super excited to be with you today. Great Transitions was founded in 2013, and it's a system for working with seniors as their lifestyle and housing needs change. What we know is it can be 12 to 18 months. It can be 3 to 5 years before you're ready to make a change. But what we do know is that the development of the plan is the most important thing that you can do, because let's be honest, not having a plan is a plan, it's just a really bad plan, right? And that plan should consist of two parts. What you want your retirement years to look like, and then maybe a contingency in the what if situation. What if something happens, right? So we're not here to sell you anything. We're here to provide information. We want to be a resource to you. Our educational partners are all like-minded in that. Our panelists are like-minded in that as well. We want to be a resource for you so that when you're ready to develop that plan, you have trusted advisors that you can go to. We talk a lot about your all-star team of your financial advisor, maybe your CPA, your attorney, your real estate advisor, your travel advisor needs to be a part of that all-star team too. So as you're developing those plans, we just challenge you to keep in mind, am I making my plan? Am I outlining my plan? Maybe even writing it down. And am I sharing the plan with my trusted advisors or my loved ones that are going to have to be the ones to maybe carry out that plan for me someday? So with that said, we are going to jump into the reason why you guys are all here today. Has anybody taken a fun trip in the past, let's say 12 months? Jeanette, I know you better raise your hand. Joanne, yeah. Wendy, you guys? Okay. Oh, Alan, super. I love that. Travel is super exciting, right? You like the anticipation of going on the trip, but it can sometimes be a little nerve-wracking and scary, right? Because maybe we're going to a destination we've never been before. Maybe if you're like me, said to your friend, you plan it, I'll just show up. And then there's some uncertainty that goes with that, right? So today we're in luck because we've got two travel industry experts with us today. I've had the privilege of meeting them over the past couple of months. I know this sounds impossible, but together they have over 50 years of experience in travel planning, and they're going to share with us some of that wisdom over the next few minutes. We're going to talk about ways to reduce the overwhelm that comes with planning a trip, especially a big trip. Post-COVID, I think post 9/11 was one factor that changed travel, and I think COVID was another factor that changed travel. We're going to talk about some of the fun places we can travel to and lots more. So this is going to be a lot of fun. When we met prior, we always have a meeting with our panelists before we get up here. So we're not doing this on the fly. We did put some work into this. And we talked about the different areas that we wanted to cover. And I got off the phone and Nicole and I looked at each other and we're like, we need to plan a trip. We are so ready to go. So I think you guys may be ready to pack your bags when we finish up here. We're going to have a time for Q&A at the end. I encourage you to use your note sheet to write down any questions as they come to mind. And then we'll do our best to get to those at the end. And then they'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards to answer some specific questions that you might have. With that, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. Bob, let's start with you.
Okay, well, I'm Bob Cook with Go Travel. We have an office in Winter Park, Longwood, Merritt Island, Melbourne, and 2 places in the Carolinas, and Merritt Island. And well, we have one more somewhere, I can't quite remember. But my job is Director of Sales for the company, which means I go and talk to groups. I work with my suppliers, and I've only been in the business 35 years.
Okay. All right.
I'm a baby.
Sharon?
I'm Sharon Browning with Dream Vacations. I'm based here in Orlando. I graduated UCF with travel and tourism, worked on the hotel side for about 15 years, and then I'm on the travel agent side now, and yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you both with
you.
us here
Glad to be
today.
here.
We're going to dive in. Okay, Bob,
Okay.
when are you too old to travel?
You're too old to, well, let's put it this way. I know people who are 60 who should not travel. I know people who are 95 and are still collecting countries. It all depends on your limitations, and you've got to realize what they are. But you're never too old. The owner of my company, he just passed away at 99, and he traveled up until 2 weeks before he passed away.
Oh my goodness.
And doing it, he did hella hiking.
What's
up near-
hella hiking?
Hella hiking
Does that mean
is-
it's a
They
hella, a
take
lot
you on a
of,
helicopter up to the top of a mountain in Canada, and you hike in the snow. And he did that at 97.
at 97 years old?
97 years old. So
Wow.
you're not too old, but you've got to realize your limitations and listen, work with a good agent who says, that's going to be kind of strenuous, you know. People in wheelchairs shouldn't go to Venice. I'll be very frank with you. You know, it's a lot of bridges. So you have to know your limitations. Age is not really a limit. I think it's more of a guide.
Hmm.
And of course, some places, you know, some places you can't go. They don't like people over a certain age.
Sharon, you've done trips for seniors?
Absolutely. I agree. You're really never too old to travel, but you really do need to have a good professional, and you need to communicate the limitations to everybody in your party.
Yes.
Somebody who uses a walker is different than somebody who's dependent on a walker. So, you know, if you're going to go to a European country and you're going to use the train system, that's fine, but you've got to be on a hotel near a train station with a lift. They don't all have lifts. So you really need to make sure you're communicating to your travel advisor and letting us really do the research and making sure that it might be a fantastic hotel, but if you can't get up the stairs in the train station, your vacation's over, that kind of thing.
Yeah, awesome. So my first career was in hospitality. I worked in hotels, and we worked hand in glove with travel agents. And then Al Gore created the internet, and a lot came on, right? But we're back in that mode. I feel like, and maybe it's just me, but travel agents are definitely of value when you're planning a trip. Are there certain questions that I should be asking my travel agent, my travel consultant? How are travel agents paid? What's the difference between online and live? Bob, I'm going to start with you again on this one.
Okay, well, when choosing a travel agent, you should find out what their area of expertise is, or if they work with a company that does have access to that knowledge. And that's an important thing. I cannot know everything. I've been to countless countries. I've been traveling for 69 years, well, 68 years, because I didn't go when I was first born. But I've been traveling since I was 68. And I have, thank God I have a prodigious memory. But choosing an agent, how long have you been in the business? What can you offer? Ask them, why should I use you? They should say, I have access to special rates. I have access to knowledge. That's, I think, the biggest key. Those are what you should ask. You also need to see if someone can work with you. You know, if you have a specific need and this person's like, oh, really? You don't want to work with them. I do this in my own office. I will direct people. You know how that is. You will make sure that people can work with you. How do we get paid? We get paid commission. Your price that you see on Royal Caribbean website is the same price we get. Actually, we get better because we have group space. So we are paid by commission from the company. You cannot get a better one dealing directly with any company. So use us. We have the knowledge. We have the access to the people behind the scenes. I think that's the important thing. If something goes wrong, and it does, you want to know who to contact. You contact your travel agent. I did this all this weekend because Italy went on strike. And I had to get people from Parma on Easter Sunday to the Milan airport to get to Greece to get a cruise at 10 o'clock the next morning.
Oh my goodness.
So my Easter Sunday was basically on the phone with my suppliers, and we got it done. So we get paid by them. That's our job, is to do that. What's the difference between an online agent and a live travel agent? Live travel agents, such as us, are real. We are there for you. You know us, we know you. Oh, hi, yeah, sure. That's right, you need a seat on the aisle, and you prefer a balcony cabin on the cruise. We know who you are. If you're calling online, you're getting someone who's most likely in a country that is not the United States, where English is not their prime language, I'll be very blunt about it, they go offshore because going offshore is a lot less money.
Mhm.
You know, they're paying them $4 to $5 an hour. The difference between between knowledge and just being an order taker, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Online is order takers.
Jim?
We are knowledgeable.
And one of the main things about the live agent is
Yeah.
when you call me, I already have all your information.
Yes.
So each time you call any supplier, you're on hold, you queue up for what language you want to speak, you get somebody who sometimes can't even pronounce the names of the cities you're wanting to travel to. You have to go through all your thing again. This is my reservation number, I called and talked to so-and-so, you have to repeat yourself. And we're here 24 hours a day pretty much, answer my phone 7 days a week, and you're not starting over again. Yes, I did add your drink package, yeah, go ahead, I'll get Wi-Fi. I know you need a crib in your room, I've already taken care of that. I corrected your name on your passport to match, so you're not starting over again, hold time, repeating yourself. And when you have a problem, like we had people in Italy this weekend, and I literally had clients call me on Easter Sunday morning at 4:45 in the morning and saying, they stopped the bus, we all had to get off the bus, and now we don't know how to get where we're going. So, within 45 minutes, I had transfers, and they got from point A to point B. But if you had made that through Expedia, you would have been on hold for a very long time, like they were after COVID and
They'd
things
probably
like that.
still be
Yeah,
by the
yes,
side of the
yes.
road.
Then that's the beauty of an independent agent that you can call and say, your transfer will be there in 30 minutes, and I'm literally tracking it on my phone, and,
Yeah.
I can transmit that to them,
I
so.
love that, and it echoes something that I think, Dana, you talked about when you choose a financial advisor. It's gotta be somebody that you're comfortable
Right,
with.
right.
And that you have a rapport with, to make, because frequently, this is like a major financial decision when you're taking a
Yes,
big trip
absolutely,
like that.
absolutely,
I can
yeah.
only imagine the people that were, wow, in
Yeah,
Italy.
It was a mess, it was a mess.
So, Sharon, let's talk for a second about travel guides. What do travel guides do, and where can I find a travel guide in a city that I'm going to?
Travel guides are wonderful, and if you can find local travel guides, that's really what I set out to do every time I book a travel trip. There's a lot of them online, Viator, Get Your Guide, Tours by Locals, but that's where you really need to speak to an agent who's used the company before. So if you just go online and you book somebody on Viator, there might be 8 people who are going to do a tour of Palermo and Sicily. But I know that I have used Joe for 7 years, and he has a great, clean car. He's very reputable. He's not going to rip you off. We're going to pay him ahead of time. You don't need to worry about, extra tipping and things like that. If you just go online and you book it, you can get somebody who's been guiding for 1 day or for 10 years. And that's really scary when you're putting out a lot of money on a vacation and you want a true experience, rather than just having somebody drive you around pointing to buildings and not having any of the back history and backstories. So there's a lot of great guides out there. And the great thing about having an experienced agent is we know who's used them in the past, we know if they've had issues, we don't use them anymore, or we've used them ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's really the key.
And I think, at least the trips that I have been on, having a guide that is knowledgeable, and then I think what I'm hearing is you will give them information on me to know
Exactly.
what I want to learn.
Exactly.
And then that, for a lot of people, is the best part of the trip, is,
Yes.
oh, we learned what happened in this location.
We can
or
also
that
let them know physical limitations. When you
Yes.
pick them up at the hotel, you need to make sure that you're curbside where they can get down with a walker or a scooter, or this person has a breathing issue, they can't do long walks, they need to have good air quality. We've changed around, tour times based on air qualities in cities. So we know about you,
Yeah.
and then we can communicate that to the guide.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
We like them to know you. We both work with people called on-location suppliers. Like, if you're going to Ephesus, I have one person only, because after you tour Ephesus, you have lunch in her kitchen overlooking Ephesus itself in a 2,000 square foot open kitchen. You don't get that experience
Right.
just going online. Oh, look, Henry's tour of Ephesus. You're not going to find that. We both work for companies that have major assets that we can use.
Because Bob might have gone to Ephesus and had a totally different experience or
Yes.
different expectations.
Mhm.
So he might think his guide is great, but if
Yeah.
I know you want a personally cooked meal or you want a
Exactly.
cooking class in someone's kitchen, that's a totally different experience than, an 18-year-old who just wants to go take some Instagram pictures and run along, so.
Very cool, very cool.
it's all about the
So I think we're all naturally probably going to do some online searching about the destination that we want to go to, and I think that's fine. But to your point of earlier, I don't know, safe areas. You hear about pickpockets in Rome or
Paris.
phones in England and
Yeah.
different things like that. Bob, how do travel agents stay up to date on those safe places to travel and how to get the best experience in all these different cities?
Well, first off, when we talk with you, I typically, and my agents like to spend 30 to 45 minutes minimum with you, literally discussing everything. What's important to you? Why are you going to Paris? I want to go to the Gare d'Orsay. Well, that might not put you at the Hotel Louvre next to the Louvre Museum. I would probably find something different for you. So what we do is we ask you, we keep up with facts by looking at the United States Department of State advisories. For example, one just came out for Eastern Colombia today. And Colombia's been a very safe country for the past 10 years, but one just came out for Eastern Colombia. Royal Caribbean just stopped going to Haiti, to Labadee for a while because of the unrest that's going on there. So we do get a lot of information from our suppliers. We get a lot of information going to the Department of State. And a lot of it is, even within certain areas, I'm not going to put you in Venice, for example. I'd rather you spend a little more money for a better hotel than being over by the train station. Because San Marco is on the other side of Venice. You don't want to have to go 2.5 miles, walking through these little narrow streets. That's why we know we're safer. And talking about safety, Paris. Don't bring the bling. You might have a great diamond bracelet, you might have a wonderful Rolex, they look spectacular, but bring the fabulous fakes. I literally, and this has happened to me twice, I carry a dummy wallet for myself in my back pocket. And then I put, screw you, when they open it. I buy it at Goodwill, and I just keep a couple of them with me. And I fill them up with paper and all that stuff. You don't want to be a victim. If you have people coming up to you, you have to be very careful. This is anywhere. If you see people swarming, or want you to sign something, put your hand on your wallet, grab your purse, and walk away. If they scream, learn how to say fire in 5 languages. Fire gets more work, more than help. So that's basically, we will advise you what to look for. Crystal Cruises just had an incident in Kenya. They robbed 40 tourists at a site that Crystal took them on. Now, the Kenyan government literally gave them all their money back. They paid them for their money.
Wow.
But you have to be just careful. Be aware. That's what you had to, and ask us. We know, where to go, what not to do, where to go for it. And that's it. Just be aware.
And we talk a lot in this setting, knowledge is power.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
and relying on the experts that have the
Yes.
knowledge is super important.
Yeah.
So Sharon, I would be a single traveler if I were taking a trip. And we have some single travelers here today. What options are there? Is there a way for me to travel and still mix with other people? And as a single traveler, do I ever get any discounts or price breaks?
Yeah, so solo travel is really, really popular and getting more popular. So traditionally how it's been, take a cruise for example, you're going on a cruise by yourself, you're gonna pay for that cabin, you're gonna pay for 2 people's fare, minus taxes and fees for the second person, so you're almost paying double. But a lot of cruise lines and hotels are doing special inventory for solo travelers. They keep a certain amount of cabins set aside for solo travelers. Obviously it's not a huge allotment, so you wanna plan ahead if you're traveling solo. But they also have solo cruises where they have entire groups of solos, so it's a great place to meet people, go on excursions with people, things like that. So it's definitely doable, just need to plan ahead and talk to an agent who knows which lines keep an allocation of solo cabins available. That'll save you paying the extra money. And also with solo travel, back to the safety issue, you really need to be very careful and make sure your agent's putting you in good places if you're not traveling on the ship.
And there, I think having a guide would be super important in that.
Absolutely. And just to tag on to the safety issue, in Rome I had 4 clients pickpocketed last year, husband and wife on the same train, and they used children. So their fanny packs were under their jackets and under their shirts like they should have been. Crowded train, the children get in and get the wallets and hand them off, and before you even know it's gone, it's 7 people down the train station. So
Wow.
if you're next to anyone, you just can't. You
Just
have
need to tape it to you.
Yeah, so I always tell them wear a fanny pack, safety pin it, or use the safety pin
the
the
zipper.
zippers together, keep it under your shirt, and just keep your hand on it all the time. which when you're on a crowded train, you're holding on, and it's
Right.
and the children work it really well, especially in Rome.
I bet.
Also Santorini, I would say that if you're, we know things from going ourselves and from sending clients, but I tell people, if you're going on a cruise and Santorini is your main area that you want to go to, let's be really careful about that, because what cruise lines are doing is it's in the itinerary, and then 3 weeks, 4 weeks before, they're kicking it off the itinerary and they're sending you to Crete or someplace else, which is still beautiful and it's still wonderful. But if Santorini was on your bucket list, then you really need to be careful and make sure we're communicating really well on that. They've got a lot of cruise ship traffic, they had volcanoes, so just make sure you're really...
Earthquakes.
Yes,
Earthquakes now have been
yes,
stopping it all.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
But if there's something on, if you have a cruise itinerary and you tell your agent, listen, this is on my bucket list. All these things sound great, but I've got to see Mykonos. Just make sure you really let them know, because there might be some lines that don't do that as prevalent as other lines.
Gotcha,
So,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, so big trips usually are big money. And if I want my money to go the furthest, what's the best value in terms of places around the world, taking into account currency and things like that? Bob, where could I go and live like a king or a queen for a week?
Well, in Europe, Portugal. Portugal is probably the best value. It's typically 2/3 the price of Spain for meals and everything like that. The only exception to that, river cruises are not that reasonable in Portugal, but they're so popular, and they go out of Porto. Other places are Eastern Europe, Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania is excellent value. And another one I'm finding to be a good value, surprisingly, Egypt.
Is it safe to go?
Very safe to go. That's where you definitely, you put together a private tour. There's companies that do it. I just did one for someone in Orlando. $6,000, 10 days, private tours, getting into the museum, the new museum in Cairo before it opens. And this person is a certified Egyptologist. And they're taking a balloon ride over the Valley of the Kings at dawn with champagne.
Wow.
So Egypt, though, we're finding that trip 2 years ago was $7,000. Now it's $5,300. So you have to know where the value is. And parts of South America are very safe, are very economical. Colombia, definitely.
Western Colombia.
Western Colombia. That is West, Bogota, and surprisingly, Medellin.
Okay.
The former drug capital.
I was going to say,
There's like 25,000 Americans that live there. I think I know half of them. But they live there now. It's very safe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Sharon, when it comes to lodging options, can a travel agent help with that, like hotel reservations or things like Airbnb and VRBO?
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, hotel reservations, we do it all the time. Legally, travel agents cannot book VRBO or Airbnb for you because it's not a third party. You're not allowed to have a third party book it. But any good travel agent will have an inventory of villas, houses, things like that we can put you into.
So is it similar to Airbnb?
Very similar. Sometimes they're more luxurious if you want that. We have something called Villas of Distinction, and all throughout Europe and Spain and the Caribbean, and that also comes with a housekeeper and a cook, and it's really, if you're going with a family, it's a great way to go. It's a great way to go. And you can say, we don't need the housekeeping, we want the chef one night, not another night, so we can customize it as well.
Does that work domestically as well as international?
Yeah, we have some domestic, yep, in the
Okay.
Carolinas and out west, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. This travel planning might be getting easier for me. I like this. So let's talk about domestic versus international travel. You referenced a little bit earlier Venice, and walking and things like that. Do those, European Asia, do those companies follow any ADA
No, they do not.
compliances?
They always joke they don't have ADA and they don't have Morgan & Morgan. And it shows when you get over there. Because you can have a step this big and a step this big and a step that goes like this and no handrails, so it's very different. So you really need to, again, have your travel advisor put you on tours with people who are reputable, who know your limitations, who know what you want to do, and understand where your hotel needs to be next to as far as if you're going to do public transportation, because it is not ADA compliant. And I can even tell you cruise ships, brand new, huge cruise ships, that have elevators this big. So if you're on a mobility scooter, you can barely fit your scooter, let alone your family in with you. It's miserable. So I wouldn't book you on that if I knew you were using that apparatus. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, but there's no ADA compliance over there.
So if there are some significant mobility issues, domestic travel may be preferred?
Yeah, and even international travel is okay as long as we know that ahead of time.
Okay,
So as long as you're communicating to us, and if something changes, I had a client who's going to an Alaskan cruise on a very high-end cruise ship, and they had a daughter who had an issue, and they said, well, right now she's using a wheelchair, she might be on crutches, she might be on a walker, and you need to keep me posted on that every step up until we get prior to sailing so I can make the cruise ship aware, because using a scooter or a wheelchair is very different than using crutches or a walker, so that's just that communication, so we can make sure we're on the front end of it for you.
Good.
There's no surprises on the other end.
okay. We've talked a lot about cruises, and I think that's a big option for a lot of people. Several of you in the room, I know we've
Everybody's
talked
cruised.
about the cruises that you've been on recently. Let's talk about ocean cruise versus river cruise. Bob, if you'd take the ocean and Sharon the river.
Okay, well, ocean, obviously, as the ships are getting newer, they're, in terms of accessibility, they're getting much better. Royal Caribbean has 50 cabins on their new ships that are accessible. Book them early, because you're not gonna get them if you decide you're going in 2 weeks. But ocean travel, we're seeing a lot of things becoming more inclusive, especially in the upper range. For example, Celebrity. If you book it early enough and you can get with it with group pricing, which is what we both do, we both manage thousands of groups, you're gonna get the drink package and the Wi-Fi for free. Royal Caribbean, they don't include that. Royal Caribbean, for a drink package, you're gonna pay $84 a day for a drink package.
That's, whoa, you
Yeah, per
wouldn't
person.
be enjoying the
Per
cruise
person,
very
yes.
much if you were
Well, you are,
$84
but
a
you're
day.
looking
Yes,
at
per
everyone
person, you both
enjoying.
gotta get it, too.
Yes, you both gotta get it.
Yeah.
So ocean cruising is becoming much more available to people. The inventory on the ships is just increasing, as you can see, with what's out of Port Canaveral, the largest cruise terminal port in the world. So what you want to look for? Do I
Port
want to be?
Canaveral's bigger than Miami now?
Yes, it is. Bigger than Miami, bigger than Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. More
Did
people
y'all
go
know
out.
that? I did not know that.
Port Canaveral's the largest port.
Yeah, capacity.
Wow.
Yeah. Try to find parking sometimes. That's a fun thing. No, there's 11 ships that go out in the wintertime. So what you want to look at, what do you want involved? If you don't drink, then maybe a Royal Caribbean cruise is for you. If you like to have a few glasses of liquid refreshment during the day, look at Celebrity. What size ship do you want? Do you want a ship with 6,000 passengers? I was just on one that had 8,400 passengers.
Wow.
Yes, it was quite interesting, and I
It's
like
like a
big
town.
ships. It is. So you have to look what you want. Look at room sizes. Look at the passenger composition. Royal Caribbean is family. No matter when you go, you could be on a small ship with 3,000 passengers. You're still going to have 400 to 500 kids on it. If that's not what you want, then you shouldn't look at it. Look at the new Explorer ships. How many of you have traveled on suites in Celebrity or Royal Caribbean or something like that? Have you ever done this? Okay. I am taking a lot of people and putting them on suites on Oceania. I'm putting people on a new cruise line called Explorer Journeys. Fantastic ship, all included, everything included. And you're getting a cabin that's almost 300 square feet. A large cabin with only 900 passengers. So you have to look at what you're willing to do. You know, look at your budget. Be honest about your budget. Oh, I want a balcony cabin on Christmas. Okay. And are you taking out for our mortgage people here? Can you arrange second mortgages? So I think for ocean travel, you just had to be ready. You have to have someone who knows the ship. You have to have an idea of what's important to you. Formal entertainment, casual entertainment, a small lounge act versus a full Broadway production. That's what it boils down to. Your likes and dislikes, share them with us so we can guide you in the right direction. Because I don't want you to come back and complain to me. I hate complaints. I try not to have many, if any. And that's what we do. Our job is to make sure that we get it right for you.
Awesome. Sharon, what about river cruising? How different is that?
It's my favorite form of travel. How many of you have ever cruised? Yeah, isn't it awesome? So it's my favorite form of travel. It is very different. So you're talking about a small ship, like 200 people, probably like 3 decks. It's like, they're called long ships. So it's not a huge like vessel like you're thinking with the deep bottom. They're all about the same as far as the ship themselves. They all have to fit through the locks and under the bridges. So you're not going to get a big difference other than the Alma Magna, which is a really wide ship. It only does certain short itinerary. As far as river cruises go, 200 people, very personal. Your cabin steward's going to know when you're coming down the hallway, they're going to open your door, they know where you're going. The bartender knows what you like in your drinks. Your server's going to know you by name by the second night. So very personable. And versus an ocean cruise, where an ocean cruise pulls into a port and you're normally getting on a bus and going into the excursion, you're on a river, so you're pulling up to a dock and you're in the city. So you're going to get off your river cruise and you're going to walk to the cathedral, walk to the ruins for most part. So very, very convenient that way. So if you want to see like 3 or 4 countries, 8 or 9 cities, unpack one time, have your hotel float with you, river cruising is the way to go. Obviously your meals are included. They include beer and wine at lunch and dinner, so those drinks are included. You can buy a drink package if you want extra. You're not going to get Broadway shows. You're not going to get big entertainment. By 10 o'clock, it's pretty much quiet.
Casino?
Everybody's exhausted from walking all day in Europe.
No casino?
No casino, no pictures, that kind of stuff. So very, very low key, no formal nights. Very different, but my very favorite form of travel. I will tell you, river cruising is becoming very, very popular. Celebrities starting with river cruising in a couple of years. Plan in advance for river cruising. If you want to go to the Christmas markets, which I highly recommend, you need to be planning for 26, 27 right now. They book very far out. There's a difference in lines too. Viking, holds the market on advertising. Everyone knows Viking. They kind of carry the load on that. There are other lines, and all your excursions are included too. So you get on the river cruise, every single port you go into is going to have an excursion included. It's usually a historical walk with really great local guides. But there's other lines, Avalon, on the waterways. Avalon specifically, every excursion's included, and there is a historical walk that you can choose, a classic. There is active, they call it, so you can do hiking or biking. Or there's like a discovery, which is like a cooking class or a painting class. So that's great for multi-generations because grandma and grandpa or mom and dad might want to do the historical walk. The teenagers might want to go biking. You might want to go to a cooking class. My husband usually does the crazy stuff, and I do the more low-key stuff. But it's really a relaxing and great way to travel. To see Europe, I think it's the best option. I really do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let's go with that multi-generational that you just referenced. Bob, several of the people in the room may have grandchildren that are going on a trip. Are there any tour companies that are especially good for traveling families?
Yes, but what we do see, there are companies that do have some things with families for travel. I call it grand travel because you're usually going with 3 generations. It's either heritage travel or grand travel. There are companies that do that, but I strongly recommend almost customizing a trip like that because you're going to have 3 ages wanting to do 3 different things. And an 18-year-old may not want to do a cooking class with a 45-year-old, and the 65-year-old might want to go out windsurfing. So I do strongly suggest, even though there are companies that do it, those are with tours. So you're going to be doing tours with other kids. Now that's great if your kids are social, but if you have kids that are a little sullen, a little more drawn back, or shy, a lot of kids are shy. Look at custom, but there are companies that do it. We have access to a number of them. Tauk does a great job for travel. Tauk does a great job for grand travel. Tauk's actually excellent for river cruises with kids.
So is Ama Waterways is also
Yes,
another
Ama.
one.
Viking's not.
Yeah, Viking. You can't get on Viking if you're under 18.
Or
Right.
if you're in a wheelchair,
Right,
that's another
right.
thing.
Yes, Ama Waterways has Disney run their kids program. So if you have multi-generation
Yeah.
travel, Ama Waterways is a great one for that.
So there are that, and it depends where you're going to go. If you want to choose a location, you don't want to stay for a week in the middle of Tuscany in a villa with the kids, because they're going to kill you. You're going to be ready to strangle them, and that's why you have insurance to get the bodies home.
That's the next question, Bob. We'll get to that in a minute.
But grand travel is a very great way to travel. We see a lot of it, primarily in Florida, primarily cruises.
Okay.
Cruises are a great way because it gives them something for everybody.
Yeah, makes sense. So we talked about grandchildren. Let's talk about pets. Sharon, what if I have a documented service animal? How does that work? Especially international.
Well, my 5-pound Shih Tzu cannot travel with me, and I'm a little salty about that. But if you do have a service animal, you really need to communicate that to us. Provide us the documentation ahead of time, like at the time we start talking about booking. Don't let us book your travel and then say, oh, and this is my service animal, because every vendor is different. Rocky Mountaineer through Canada is going to be different than a Royal Caribbean ship to Alaska. So there are exceptions for it, there are accommodations for it, but not every single vendor will allow it. So we just need to know that really up front. And the first conversation with us, the documentation, what the animal is, what the medical necessity is, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely doable. You just need to pick the right trips for it.
Okay, all right, great. Now, let's talk about travel insurance. It's expensive, and I actually put Sharon's Facebook post up here because I thought it was funny. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I have 2 pictures and 2 words. Travel insurance.
Yes.
So that's a helicopter getting on a ship, which I think is quite expensive.
Never a good thing.
Yeah. So Sharon, is travel insurance worth it?
It's not only worth it, it's not expensive. It's not expensive.
What does it cover? Tell us about it
So,
a little bit.
Different companies, different policies. There's a website called insuremytrip.com. It's going to list all the different companies and what their coverage is and what their costs are. Insuremytrip.com and SmartMouth are 2 of the websites. SmartMouth you can go to. And SquareMouth or SmartMouth? SquareMouth, sorry. And it'll just compare the companies. Obviously, we both sell travel insurance from our own companies. I don't care where you buy it, just buy it. Because it's not just for trip cancellation, it's for trip interruption. Somebody gets sick or dies at home and you need to get home. You get hurt or injured during the trip. Missed connections, you miss your connection and miss your river cruise departation, they're gonna compensate you for that. And
If it's my error?
no, missed connection, like you
The
push
flight's
back late from
late.
Orlando, which never happens, and you miss your connection in Houston.
Planes don't blow up
yeah,
on the termite.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Lost baggage, you get, some compensation for that. So there's a lot of things in there that you think you're never gonna use, and mainly people say, I'm not gonna cancel my trip, so I'm not gonna get the insurance. I have a lady who fought me really hard on it for a Christmas market trip, and it came down to 16 days prior, which was the criteria for this exact policy, and I said, you really need to get trip insurance. You're going to Europe, and you're going solo. You need to. She finally gave in. I said, I'm going to have you sign a waiver if you don't get it. I feel so strongly about it. She gave in. She gave me a little bit of slack about it. She called me from Houston on her connection from an emergency room. She had gone through security, slipped on coffee, shattered her kneecap. She called me from the emergency room and said, I'm so sorry I'm missing my cruise, but I'm so glad I have insurance. And that's just something that no one could have foreseen happening. Getting into a car accident on the way to your port, getting in traffic on the way to the port and you can't get to the port. All those things that you can't control, you would never foresee, that's what's covered by trip insurance. And when you have an evacuation like this is a $100,000 expense, and you're going to a hospital in a foreign country. Your American insurance is not going to cover that.
Oh, wow.
So you can be talking about a $400 policy that you paid for, could be saving you $180,000. It's really, really important. And
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's more important for international travel, but I really recommend it for any type of travel, because even if you're going to Port Canaveral 40 minutes away, things can happen on the way there.
Sure,
So,
sure.
or
Bob?
during the trip.
Do you
Well-
have any travel insurance story you could tell us?
I have several, but I will share the last 2 that just happened to us. We had a client who was on an extended cruise in the Caribbean, got to Costa Rica. They got off the ship, the husband fell, cut his leg. Not bad, okay, go to the emergency room, get it sewn up. While he was at the emergency room, he had a massive coronary. Obviously, they didn't let him back on the ship. They took him to San Jose, Costa Rica. He was there for 3.5 weeks. Hospital, they would not let him fly home for 5 weeks, so he had to stay there. He was in the hospital with private nurses for a week and a half, then in a hotel that the hospital said to use with a nurse visiting. Not only did they get back their unused portion of the cruise, they were only 7 days into a 28-day cruise. They got back 3/4 of the cost of the cruise. They also were covered for a $158,000 bill, including getting to go home. And you know how much it cost them out of pocket? $50.
50.
And then we also, the other one, and now this was an older couple, but the other one, we had a younger person. Similar story was in India, stepped off a curb, didn't realize the step was this instead of this. I almost did that coming in here today from coming across the street. He broke his leg in 3 places, got an infection, private plane home with a doctor and a nurse because he went septic. He didn't want the insurance. We bought it 2 weeks before. The couple who were in Costa Rica, they bought the insurance 2 days before they went. Because I said, I'm not going to do business with you anymore. You're 84 years old, for God's sake, Let's be real, I don't buy unripe bananas. You don't push it. So it's true. We all have true stories. I also love it that 99% of my clients who buy insurance never have to claim anything on it.
Yeah.
But if they claim it, they can blame it for trip interruption, trip delay. One company actually put $750 into my bank account as I was sitting on the tarmac because the plane was delayed, and they paid $750 a day. They said, okay, you're more than 3 hours delayed. I had it in my bank before we took off. And I paid $78 for the insurance.
That's
If
better than Vegas odds.
And,
Oh, it is.
and be somewhat leery of your credit card.
Yes.
Travel insurance, it's never as good as it seems. Sometimes they'll run the
No.
bill and then they'll take it back off as a charge. So be really careful. I really recommend third-party insurance. I really
Yeah.
don't think, especially for big trips, don't trust the credit cards.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes in these countries like Mexico, you get into the emergency room, they won't see you
No.
until you pay. You better have
10,000
several
10,000.
credit cards.
Yeah.
I've had people who've had to max out several credit cards just to
Yeah.
get seen. And one more thing as far as evacuations and stuff, there are some cruise ports, and spread this to your families with younger kids and things like that. Travel with a passport, an actual passport that opens up the book, not the card. There's closed loop travel that can go Fort Lauderdale round trip, Miami round trip, as long as it's closed loop, leaving from one port, coming back to that port. Alaska for Seattle will do it. You can travel with a birth certificate and like a state ID. You cannot get home with that. So my brother-in-law flies as a private pilot. He flies all the time, mainly to the Caribbean and the Bahamas, because people are doing these closed loop with birth certificate and state ID. You get airlifted, you get hurt, you go to a hospital. Unless you can get back on your ship and come back, you can't get home. You cannot fly home with a birth certificate and an ID because you're international. So he's gone over several times for people, sometimes children, and he's like, I can't bring them back. There's just no way
You have to get a
get them back.
passport. You have to get a passport issued,
Right,
which means
right.
you have to deal with the Department of State.
And it takes
Do
time
you
and
know
money.
there's not every island in the Caribbean has a consulate.
That's right, that's right. So it's worth the money, even though for kids, they say, well, it's only for 5 years, I'll just wait. Get the passport, pay the money,
Yeah.
do it in advance, and make sure your passports are valid for at least 6 months from the day you come back from your trip. So that means the day that you land back at your home port, 6 months after that. So I'm taking a big group to Norway this summer, and I'm checking everyone's passport and making sure they're all good through the end of February 2026, because it's 6 months after you return home, not from when you leave. So that's a
Gotcha.
big passport issue.
Gotcha. We're gonna get to questions in just a second, Mike, so write it down. We talked with our educational partners about their bucket list trips. What kind of bucket list trips are you booking for people right now, Bob?
Antarctica, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. Japan tourism is up 300% in the last 5 years.
Wow, wow.
And
You're
it's
gonna
not-
you're
it's
gonna
not
meet a
cheap.
neighbor. You're gonna meet a neighbor in Japan. Trust me.
Yeah.
Especially Florida. Florida's sending a lot of people to Japan,
Interesting.
and mostly by cruises. Japan because you get to see all the islands.
Okay.
A few days ahead and then cruise.
Sharon, what about you?
Everyone's going to Europe, of course. Greece is very, very popular right now. Doing a lot of Rocky Mountaineer through Canada. I'm not sure if it's the exchange rate that our dollar's so strong there or what's going on, but a lot of people are doing Rocky Mountaineer through Canada. And Antarctica is the big one right now. Everybody's got the bucket list for Antarctica.
That's the bucket. That's the
And
one.
we
As long as you can survive the Drake Passage.
We talked about this, like, I'm not seeing a lot of ruins in Antarctica. I'm not.
But you're getting the seventh continent.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what you want.
Stepping
You want the
foot on
flag on the seventh continent.
Okay.
That's right,
Gotcha.
that's right.
Plant the flag. Sir Edmund,
That's right.
Edmund Hillary, is that what you
Yes.
I'm working on flying the Drake Passage, because the Drake Passage is known for it can be 40-foot waves, and I get very seasick. So
40-foot
yeah,
waves?
yeah, it's very, very, they call it the Drake shake.
Yeah.
So I'm not a really big, I'm a
Yeah.
seasick person, so I'm looking for a fly the Drake type situation, which they're coming out with. A lot of people.
Oh, they
yeah,
are.
Yeah.
People love it. And it's mostly expedition. They call it expedition travel. That's another big trend I think we're both
Yes,
seeing.
yeah.
The expedition
Yes.
ships, where it's smaller ships, a lot of education, and total luxury.
Yeah. And
Like
people are-
classroom education?
Yeah.
Education, people talking about the destination, people talking about penguins, people talking about the Shetland Islands and the history, with the war between England and Spain about 40 years ago that Prince Andrew so distinguished himself,
And
so.
even the Antarctica, like on
Yeah.
Viking ships, it's a luxury experience.
Yes.
But they're actually going out and they're doing the air balloons, coming back into a theater, getting education on that. figuring out who's doing what next, and the guests are actually helping with it. So I think we're finding guests are doing more
Yeah.
experience travel.
Hands-on.
You know, learning to cook,
Feeling.
learning to paint, you know,
Okay.
that kind of thing, rather than just going, seeing, taking pictures. Unless you're the Instagram generation, they just take their pictures and
Or
go back
taking
to the
a
ship.
private submarine. Some of the ships have
Yes,
submarines
they do, they do. Yeah.
Interesting.
And
that
some
go
have
down
helicopters,
500
yeah.
feet, yeah, scenic with the helicopter.
All right, so do I have a couple of partners that have some microphones? Because we're going to do a few minutes
This is the
of
scary
Q&A. So we're going to, our educational partners are going to bring a microphone to you, and we'll probably repeat the question just to make sure we've got it documented. So let's start with Frank.
This is a question I've had for a long time. I've had 85, we're still traveling actively. On occasion, we toy with the idea of going to Antarctica, as well as a lot of people have. Now, at our advanced age and so forth, and whether we are overcoming the intense desire to go visit penguins or not, but the point being is, what if in the middle of the trip, you have a serious medical emergency? What do you do on an Antarctica trip when you're absolutely nowhere where there's medical facilities?
Okay, so this is a super specific question. If I'm in the middle of Antarctica and I have a medical event, what happens?
Well, Antarctica is a research station. They do have medical doctors there, number one. Number two, even though you're about 1,000 miles away, there's still the possibility of being evacuated to Chile or to Argentina. The ships also have, I think, a more advanced medical staff on board. A lot of them will be able to connect directly. A lot of them connect to the Jackson Hospital in Miami. So if you're doing if they need cardiologists, they will take your test. It'll be read by them and say, okay, this is what you need to do. So there's a lot of very, very positive steps, because we've had people 94 go to Antarctica. The oldest that Silversea had was 98. You also, most cruise lines require you to do a medical examination before you leave, and they will not let you go unless you show you have insurance.
Okay.
And that's
So
going to
the-
include evacuation
Yes.
and repatriation insurance.
And there
So-
you get the highest limit.
Yeah.
Some insurances give $250,000 evacuation. That's not enough.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
$500,000 to $1 million minimum evacuation.
So an extreme trip has some
Have
extreme
extreme insurance.
requirements and
Australia and New Zealand too, because of the cost of evacuation and
Sure.
getting home.
Right.
You want the higher coverage.
okay, awesome, awesome. Cindy?
Three quick questions. About how long is it taking to get a passport right now, if you all know?
About 3 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, about that.
Okay,
Do it now.
3 to 6 weeks on a passport if anybody's planning a trip.
And the other one, you mentioned some really good values for international. What about the US?
Good values in the US.
Good values in the U.S.
Vegas is always a deal.
Vegas is always, yeah, the
But
buffets are great.
Vegas is more expensive than
Than
it
it
used to
Vegas
be.
is very
Yes, yes.
expensive. I don't think, there's value at the times of year you go. That's the key. If you go to New York in December, you're going to pay $1,000 for a hotel room per night. No way around it. If you go to New York between May 1st and maybe May 15th or 20th, in that time period, you may get the same hotel for $400. It's all timing and location.
So what you
Okay.
think about that is when kids are out of school, it's going to be expensive.
Right.
So figure out where you want to go and then ask you
Yeah.
when is
May
the
and
time.
September is
Yes.
a great shoulder season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely.
The very last one, real quick, is for the cruises. I know that I've heard for bringing ships back, sometimes you can get a cheap one too.
Yeah.
How does that?
It's called a repositioning cruise. So it happens in April and October. So, and they're going to be changing their position. So they'll be coming from Europe over to the Caribbean for the spring, summer season. So in other words, you'll get on, say, in Barcelona, and you'll sail transatlantically all the way to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. With a few stops
And there will
along
be,
the
there'll be
way.
a few stops here and a few
Nicole
stops there.
did that.
But there's going to be, I was talking about before.
Yeah.
Was
there's-
that the QE2?
No, we were on the Virgin.
Virgin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's gonna be a lot of sea days in the middle, so make sure you like sea days on your ship.
Yeah.
And if you're really prone to seasickness, just consider that you're gonna be on the ship for a long time, but it's a very good value. And they still keep the ship open, you still got the shows, you still got the service, so it's a really good value.
And if you want to try the true classic ocean liner, when someone mentioned it, the Queen Mary 2 is the only ocean liner left in the world.
Yep.
Ocean liners are defined by this number of feet from the bridge area, from the front bulkhead to the bow. It's designed to go through hard water. That is a 7-day cruise. It is one of the few formal cruise lines
Very
left.
formal, black tie.
Black tie. But the onboard educational opportunities, the onboard education, onboard seminars and entertainment are phenomenal. And God knows who you're going to be with, what celebrity. I did it with my niece. The first year, she was 14 when the Queen Mary came out, and I took my niece on the Queen Mary coming back from England. And she was 14, and she'd been a babysitter, and these two little boys kept, oh, hi, Miss Nicole, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And they were with their grandmother. Okay, very nice. We go to tea, and the boys see my niece. Can we sit with you? Oh, sure, come on. And the grandmother says, oh, I'm just waiting for my daughter. Okay, who are you waiting for? Oh, my daughter, she'll be here in a minute. And this girl comes in with this baseball hat on, sunglasses, tiny little thing. She's sitting with us for 30 minutes, and I said, oh, you're Jane Seymour. Rod Stewart was on my crossing. You're always going to see celebrities on the Queen Mary. If you want to do something, that is a bucket list
It's very
trip.
special.
Very cool.
New York to Southampton, or Hamburg to New York.
Okay.
10 days.
Mike, are you going on the Queen Mary?
No, I'm going to Vikings.
Okay. What's your question?
Sharon mentioned insuremytrip.com and another.
Oh, the other
Square mouth.
Square mouth.
Square mouth.
Square Mouth.
Yes.
InsureMyTrip.com and Square Mouth, and we'll be sure to put links to those in the recap that we send out, so you can,
And those are just sites that are going to compare a lot of different travel companies and their insurance coverages.
so you can tell them what kind of insurance you
Yeah,
want.
you can kind of look at
and-
what the coverages are. For example, if you go into Allianz Travel, you put in your ages, your dates of your trip, where you're going to be. It's going to give you a basic policy, a deluxe policy, and a premium policy. So you can kind of
Okay.
see how much coverage you want.
Okay. One more from Mike?
I took the Viking cruise on the Danes,
Yes.
and I took their insurance.
Yep, that's fine.
They offered it, and I took it.
The
Yep.
cruise lines?
The cruise lines
insurance?
tend to be a little bit more expensive, and remember, they're gonna cover themselves in the end, but yeah, that's fine. If rather you have it on the cruise line insurance than no insurance, so yeah, absolutely.
But the problem with the cruise line insurance, for example, Royal Caribbean, $25,000 evacuation. That's not
That's the
adequate.
limit?
$10,000 medical.
So you can
For
usually
$10 more, $250,000 evacuation and $50,000 medical.
Okay.
And you'll probably pay less.
You have to be very careful looking at the dollar amounts covered. And if you buy a cruise line insurance or a tour operator insurance, if you're doing your airfare separately, how are you going to cover that?
Right.
So you need to make sure you're covering all the components. Have us,
I
have
was
Sharon and
gonna say.
myself, check the pricing. This is better for you because it gives you more coverage. I look at your age. I ask you your medical history, even though I'm against the HIPAA laws. If you're voluntarily telling me, hey, I have this and this, I can say you need more coverage.
And not all cruise line insurance is the same. I'm taking a
No.
big group to to Norway for the Norwegian Fords. We have like 85 people, and they have insurance, but it's only for cancellation. That is the only thing they cover.
Mhm.
They don't cover anything else, no
Oh.
medical, no nothing. It is strictly cancellation insurance, so just watch your cruise
So
line
Watch
insurance.
your people are buying extra?
Correct, they're
Okay.
buying their own. Mhm.
Cheryl, I think you had a question?
This question is for both Sharon and Bob. You mentioned family trips. Are there any cruise lines, both ocean and you mentioned Viking, that don't have children, that are adult?
Yeah, Virgin. yeah,
Adult-only
yep.
cruise lines?
Virgin and Ocean and Viking for river cruises are 18 and up.
Yes.
So just those two?
That come to
That's
mind,
all
yeah.
that come to mind for
Yeah.
me.
Now, obviously, when you get into like Regent and the higher end ships, you're gonna have a lot less kids. We did Regent to Alaska, we never saw a child until disembarkation day, and then we were like, oh my gosh, there was kids on board.
Just because of
The price
cost.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have, with children traveling, you have to know what their likes are. Again, are they social? If they're very social and like to mix with other kids, a Regent is not a ship to go on.
Right.
Royal Caribbean is a ship to go on. NCL is a ship to go on. You want to go on a larger ship where they have the programs that have the, like 15 different.
Or you want to stay off of those ships?
That's right, there you go. That's how I travel. I leave my 3 at home.
And that's another thing we didn't discuss on ocean. A lot of ocean cruise lines are starting ships within ships.
Mhm.
Royal Caribbean has their suite deck.
Well, Disney has an adults-only
Disney
section,
has, well,
right?
not adult only. This is a separate suite section on the ship.
Correct.
Oh,
With a separate dining room, separate entrance.
Separate pool area
separate
with
pool
lounge chairs
area,
just for adults.
Separate lounge area.
Yeah.
Celebrity has it, Royal Caribbean has it.
Princess is coming out with that.
Princess has it in the
NCL has it.
Sanctuary. NCL has it. MSC has it, the yacht club, and MSC is also the cruise line, the Explorer that I mentioned, their new cruise line. That is probably the best cruise line out of 243 that I've been on.
One more thing regarding insurance. If you have a pre-existing condition, cancer, heart
Yes.
disease, anything like that, you need to be very careful with insurance. Buy it at the time you make your deposit. It's very restrictive. I think with a lot of places, if you make your deposit, you only have like 14 days to get insurance to cover pre-existing conditions. If you have a serious pre-existing condition and you're concerned about it, AARP has a good program where they will cover pre-existing conditions, and they only do a 30-day look back rather than and I'm talking their look backs include if your blood pressure medication changed, they can reject you. So really be careful with pre-existing conditions to get a company that will do a short look back, or tell them up front, I have this pre-existing condition, I want to make sure I'm covered.
Yeah, and
So-
call the insurance company.
Yeah, talk to
Whatever
somebody,
one we
don't do it
recommend,
online.
Call,
Yeah.
don't look online.
And write down who you
Call
talk
them.
to.
And also, your doctor has to be able to say, well, yeah, I changed their medicine 2 weeks ago, but that's not going to impair them going on the ship.
Right.
They need to note it in their medical records because they had to provide a lot of documentation for insurance.
Gotcha.
So make sure, if you do have anything, go to see the doctor, say, doctor, I'm planning this trip, to Upper Slovenia, and I'm gonna be hiking up and down mountains. And he says, you're nuts, or go for it. But just make your doctor partner. That's another thing that we didn't talk about. Make sure your medical doctors know what you're planning on doing. Don't just decide and say, I'm doing this. Think seriously about your own limitations. I know what I can't do anymore,
Right.
a lot of stuff, but that's all right. There's other things I can do.
Yeah. Did you guys learn a little bit today? I learned a lot. We always ask you, did we try and sell you anything, which I don't think we did, but did we make you want to buy it?
And we don't care who you buy
That's
it from,
right.
just buy it.
I want to buy a trip. Oh my
And
goodness.
some companies do have an annual policy
Right.
that you can buy to cover you for at least medical and evacuation. And then you can add to that coverage. Let's say you're going to Europe and it's $6,000. They will tell you the cost to cover that trip, and you can add it to your annual policy. But for $90 to $130, you can get an annual policy as long as you're under 80,
Okay.
and it covers you everywhere.
They're going to stick around if you have a couple of other questions that you'd like to ask. You guys are our connection to the world, even though we're on Facebook Live. We would love to have you tell your friends about this, and we've got some open space in the back to add more chairs, so we look forward to you bringing someone with you next month to our next seminar. Don't forget your blue sheets. We need those back. Susan is going to be out front, and I'll get my educational partners to help me grab those from you before you go out the door. Make sure you put your name on it. We usually always get one or two that don't have a name on it. You can also pre-register for the next seminar. And if you're interested in that reverse mortgage workshop, that's where you can, even if you just want more information, you can note that on there. We look forward, our next seminar is on May 21st. This is part of Upskilling Your Life. This is our second quarter series, and we're going to talk about, kind of piggybacking on what we learned today, squeezing more out of life as we age to 100. We always like to end with a quote, and this is an oldie and a goodie. Not all those who wander are lost. We do hope that you guys take a trip and wander somewhere real soon.
Absolutely.
Take good care.